Hey YouTube, Captain Tech here, and in today's video we're going to be learning more about the VLOOKUP formula in Excel, as well as some of the potential pitfalls you could run into. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I wanted to get started with a brief example that we can sort of use to refer back to throughout this video. So we have the general formula for VLOOKUP here. We have equals, VLOOKUP, open parentheses, and then really we're giving the formula three pieces of information. There's the A portion, the B portion, the C portion. Of course, then it ends with this false statement, which is always the case, but really we're giving it three different inputs. And the way we can think about these three different inputs is for the very first one, the A section, we're telling it what is the cell that we want to get more information about. And this is often the case whenever we're using a VLOOKUP. We often have a piece of information and then we want to enrich it with more information that's related to that particular cell. So that is part A. We're telling it that specific cell in which we want to get more information about. So in part B here, we're actually giving it the data range where we can actually find that additional information that we want to use to enrich part A. Oftentimes, this isn't a separate sheet. It's in a different area that we're trying to get that additional information. And then part C, which is sometimes a bit more confusing, but we'll go through an example and hopefully it'll make more sense, is within this data range B, how far away, how many columns over is this additional information with respect to the first column that we've identified in part B. Again, that's kind of wordy, it's kind of confusing without an example, but it'll make sense in just a minute. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at an example. In this spreadsheet, I have an example of a menu at a coffee shop. And let's imagine I'm the owner. I have all the items on my menu as well as the price on the menu. And as the owner, I want to understand what's my profit margin on each of these items. I want to get that information. So I went ahead, sent an email to my manager. The manager sent across a different data set, which has all of these items on here along with the cost to make. And on top of that, how many items are in stock for each of these items on the menu. And as the owner, I want to go ahead and pull these values in. I want to understand, okay, we have the list price. What's the cost to make? How many do we have? So we can do an analysis on how much profit should I expect on each item? And then if I sell out of each item, how much total can I expect from each of those items? So in other words, what we want to do here in our first tab is we want to enrich this data set. We want to get more values in here. And unfortunately, because these items are out of order, right? I can't just go in here and copy and paste this in here. We need to be more creative. We need to use something like a VLOOKUP or an index match. So let's go ahead and get the VLOOKUP started. We'll go ahead and in this example, I want to get more info about the small coffee. I want to know the cost to make, and of course, cost to make was a field over here, right? On the data set we got from our manager. So we're gonna go ahead and enter VLOOKUP, open parentheses, and then we're gonna enter our A part of the formula. The A part of the formula, we're telling it, what do we wanna get more information about? Well, we wanna get more information about the small coffee, right? We wanna know how much does it cost to make? So that's our part A, and then we'll enter a comma after that. Part B, we'll tell it, where are we going to get this data from? And this data is coming from this data set from the manager. And really, we're going to go ahead and select the entire data set here. And a best practice is to actually highlight the entire header. So I'm going to highlight the headers from A all the way to C. One potential pitfall here, and one thing that's very important, is the item that we selected in part A of the formula, that must be the very, very first column that we highlight here. It has to be the very first column here. In other words, if these items here were, say, on the right side, I would have to clean my data. I would have to take my data and move it all the way over here. In fact, this is one of the biggest reasons why people sometimes use an index match, is because an index match has more flexibility with regards to this. Whenever you're using a VLOOKUP, the very first column that you highlight has to include that item that you selected in the first part, our small coffee section. So just something to think about whenever you're using a VLOOKUP. All right, so we've selected all the data in this section. And now we'll enter a comma after that. So part B is done now. And then lastly, part C, which was a bit confusing, but hopefully it should make a bit more sense now. Now we're saying, okay, we found our small coffee. Which data field do you want me to pull in? Do you want me to pull in the first one, the second one, the third one? So of course we're after, at least right now, we're after the cost to make. So we're gonna enter not the first, but the second one. So we're gonna enter A2 here, because it's the second column over from the data section, the data array we selected. And then after our 2, we'll enter a comma, and then we always end our VLOOKUPs with false, and then we can close the parentheses there. And then we'll see it will go ahead and pull in that value. And now we can actually apply this formula all the way down our sheet, and we'll see it actually pulls in all these values. Now, one other potential pitfall I just want to make you folks aware of is that if you have an item that doesn't exist on your data sheet, what you'll see will happen is you'll get this NA, which is saying essentially, hey, I've tried to search for this. This latte thing you're telling me about doesn't exist. Sometimes whenever you get an NA, because perhaps the name's not exactly the same, sometimes whenever you have numbers and you're searching numbers versus numbers, Excel is sometimes a bit funky. Sometimes it treats numbers as text. Sometimes it treats numbers as numbers. And if you're mix matching those, it'll give you an NA as well. So it's also very important that both of those fields are the same type of value if you're using numbers. All right, so let's go ahead and do one last example. Let's pull in our quantity as well. So we'll do that for our small coffee here. So again, we'll do VLOOKUP. In part A, we want to select what we want to learn more about. We want to learn about our small coffee, comma. Where are we going to get the data? We're going to get it from this section here, from A to C, comma. And then this time, once we found our small coffee, we want the 1, the 2, the 3. We want the third column. So we're going to enter A3, and then comma, and then end this with false. And there we go. Now we have the quantities of small coffees we have, and then we can go ahead and actually apply all these formulas down the page. All right, folks, that's all I have for you today. If the video was helpful, please leave me a like and subscribe. Your feedback's always really important. It helps me understand whether or not these videos are helpful and whether I should make similar videos in the future. You can click here to find another video about some of the potential pitfalls you can run into when running VLOOKUPs. And over here, I have a video on index matches, which are actually more versatile than VLOOKUPs. They allow you to search in multiple different directions. And actually, if you're using lots of data, they're way, way faster. So you'll actually see a lot more people use index matches in various industries. So again, I hope the video was helpful and take care.